Nampa's reputation hasn't always been great, but that's not the full story.
Nampa had a horrible reputation.
Now it's one of the safest and most proactive cities in the entire state of Idaho, and I'm bringing the chief of police here on the channel to prove it.
Our population's going up, but our crime is still going down.
We're talking gangs, drugs, new technology, and what the Nampa Police Department is doing to keep the community so safe.
You could let your kid ride his bike in the downtown area or play out in the front yard. We're a big city with that small town feel, and I think that's what makes this still special.
Start off pretty easy. Just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to be in this position.
Sure, yeah. Well, my name is Joe Huff, and I'm the Nampa Police Chief. I've been here at Nampa for just almost 32 years in the police department.
Okay.
I'm 52 years old, and my whole life has been here in the city of Nampa. This is where I was born and raised. So
awesome. So you've seen it change.
I've seen a lot change. Absolutely, absolutely.
What's the biggest thing you've noticed in? So you've been in policing for 32 years. What's the biggest thing that's jumped out at you from when you first started to now?
Probably technology. I mean, we're a very technological based department, and for instance, when I first started, you would handwrite a traffic ticket, and today we actually scan our tickets, and they're e-tickets. Videos where we have body cameras on us. It was a big deal back in the early 90s when we went to micro cassettes, when we would record a traffic stop or a contact with that, and then you'd have to take the little tape out, you'd book that into evidence.
Yeah.
Where now it's all cloud-based, it downloads to the cloud. There's audio and video of every interaction. Yeah. So that's huge.
Jumping right into technology, since we're already in it. You guys have this really neat, like you call it CommStat, right? With all the traffic cameras. And
so CommStat is a policing philosophy that we do, but that's our real-time crime center.
Okay. Did you guys model that after somewhere else in the nation, or has that kind of been like a cutting edge thing?
As far as which one?
Yeah,
CommStat
the traffic cameras.
Okay, yeah. So that no, it's not a new. It's nothing new into law enforcement. However, it is new into the Northwest here. A lot of departments. I believe it was back in 2018. I was back at a class and talking to a colonel actually from, I believe it was the Rhode Island State Police. He was talking to us about the camera systems that they have back there, how they have license plate readers, how they basically see who's in and out of their communities and stuff. So that's when we started talking about it back there. And then with COVID, when that hit, everything kind of slowed down here, but then there was some federal money that became available, and so we basically that was part of, I guess, our launching site for that.
So are you guys the only ones in the Valley who are doing this, or are other departments doing that too?
Not in Idaho. Currently, we're the only ones that have a fully functioning. So it's got a traffic management. So since Nampa is a fully encompassed city, we have our own street division. We have the traffic folks that work out of there. And what they would do, if there was something getting out, let's say at the Fort Idaho Center at a certain time, then they would be able to control the traffic lights to keep the traffic flowing. What we would use it for at the police department side is it does read license plates. It has pretty much every major intersection in the city has cameras on it. It could be as simple as an accident. We know who actually was at fault before the officer gets there. All that is obviously based on evidence. So as the police officer's taking the accident report, that's actually attached with it. So there's no more finger pointing. We both had the green lights. Yeah. Now the video speaks for itself.
So that's, just for the record, that's not a red light camera.
It's not a red light camera, and we don't have those in Idaho, and we are honestly not planning on any time ever doing that, because our philosophy here is we would rather have a face-to-face contact, rather than, it doesn't really make sense, 6 or 7 days later you to open up the mail and here's a ticket for running a red light, and you're like, I don't remember riding on that road. We want that visual deterrence when we stop you, not necessarily to give you a ticket, but to actually have that human interaction and that contact.
So and myself included, when I first found out about this, one of the concerns was kind of like a big brother kind of situation. So you guys, how long do you keep that information on the cameras for?
So we keep our the license plate reader information. Make sure I get this right for you. The license plate information is stored for 14 days, and the videos are stored for 90 days.
Okay.
That being said, just because it runs your license plate, it doesn't say that it's registered to you. It doesn't run it through the DMV system. It just records that this vehicle with this license plate went through that intersection at this time. Yeah. That way, if I needed to go back later, and let's say you were a suspect in something and I needed to find out, get a breadcrumb to see where you are in the city or where you were at during that time, I can pull that information out.
Cool.
And the cameras won't look into your vehicles. I mean, I can't
Yeah.
see, down in what, if you've got something illegal in your car or anything like that. We purposely have, they're granulated as they zoom in. And so that you usually can't even tell if it's a male or female driving usually.
When I did the Citizens Academy, and when we went through and kind of checked out all the technology, they showed us some example clips, and you couldn't even see like through the front windshield.
No.
Like you couldn't tell who was driving the car at all.
No.
Which it put my mind a lot at ease, because going into that, it was kind of a concerning thought that,
Sure.
cameras looking at you all the time.
And we get that. I mean, we've been very transparent with our community. I believe we're right at about 3,000 community members in the last year that have actually came up, whether it's their churches or their civic organizations,
Right.
or just people that are curious. We let them come down there. We let them look at it. We let them see what it is, actually put eyes on and realize that, it's not what, the rumor is out on the street or whatever, and let them see it. Transparency is huge.
And that's all public information too, right? Like if somebody, say, I don't know, you got into an accident and you wanted to come request that information
Sure.
for insurance purposes or whatnot,
Yep.
they could get that.
Correct. Or if we were out there to take the report, that would actually be on your accident report. That would be attached to it. So you would actually already have that video for your insurance adjusters or whatever. And we use it for so much more than just traffic. I mean, it could be if, say, somebody had dementia and maybe wandered away, in a car, and instead of just looking all over town for it, we could say that vehicle was headed out 12th Avenue, headed towards Melba.
Right.
Well, that gives us a breadcrumb. That's what we need to start looking out in that area, not so much in the downtown area for this person.
That's really helpful, actually.
Mm-hmm.
As far as I think it was at a town hall or something just about a month ago when we spoke, you mentioned that you have access to the school's security cameras
Yes.
in the department, actually.
So we have, yes, we don't monitor them, but we have access to them. So there's a little over 1,000 cameras that we would have access to. And the only time we would get into those is, let's say we had some sort of an unknown situation at a school, we would be able to pull those cameras up, whether it be a bomb threat or a fight or maybe, some horrendous thing like an active shooter.
Yeah.
We would be able to pull that up and say, everybody's running out of the cafeteria area. So we would focus our efforts in that
Gotcha.
part of the school rather than, kind of wandering around trying to figure out where the issue was.
Right.
I believe, as far as I'm aware, maybe 2 or 3 times in the last 18 months we've accessed those school cameras, but we let them know that we've accessed them and stuff, and we're not pulling information off of them. And we're certainly not a security company where we're watching the day-to-day activities going on there. The last time I can think of, there was a bomb threat that, thank goodness, it came out to be a false bomb threat, but we were able to pull the camera system up after the schools were evacuated and look down the hallways and make sure that nobody was, had been left in a restroom or
Gotcha.
had been left behind before we actually entered into the building. And also just, look for suspicious items. There was a few backpacks in the hallways and say, hey, focus on these hallways first, because it's weird that there's a backpack just laying in the middle of the hall or whatever.
Right. Mm-hmm. That's pretty cool. What other kind of technology, since we're talking about technology, are you guys implementing that's new or beneficial that maybe other places aren't?
So we've got technology is kind of the backbone here for the city of Nampa. It's working smarter, and I think we're doing a really good job. So like texting to 911 is a new thing that we've implemented here in the last several months. We're looking at doing drones as first responders. Obviously, we're a big city and a big valley here, but we're not big enough, at least in my opinion, that we need an actual helicopter up there. Right. So with some of the technologies, we can use drones to respond. And actually, through some of the AI stuff, the drones, we do have drone pilots, but the AI portion, it's built in where it'll avoid telephone lines, it'll avoid trees. It's not going to do any of that as far as line of sight. You don't have to just be watching it the whole time like you would if you were a hobbyist. So that's one thing I'm working with the council on, making a little bit of progress in that area. Obviously the license plate readers, like I talked about, the body cameras that we wear. It's funny, we're a paperless system, but we seem like we burn through more paper now than we ever have before. But you can use that technology, like if I'm on a traffic stop with you, as I'm sitting there having the interaction, it's being downloaded to the cloud as we're having that interaction.
Okay.
Where even 10 years ago, I would actually have something kind of like this that was on me, and that was my recorder, and I would have to plug it in, and at the end of the shift, if we had an hour-long interaction, it downloaded at 1-to-1 speed, and I needed that interview downloaded, I had to hang out for another hour as that's downloading. While here it's downloading while we're actually having the conversation. So it gets rid of a lot of that dead time and allows our officers to be much more proactive than reactive.
Interesting. When I was going through the Citizens Academy, going back to that, they mentioned how much of our actual like property taxes go towards the police department, and it was a very large portion of that.
It's over 100%.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we got to kind of go through and see all the SWAT equipment, and it was like, wow. It seemed like other departments aren't as advanced in that factor as you guys are.
A lot of departments have their own tactical teams, but again, our city, we're very lucky, and I'm very lucky to be the chief of a city that does support its police department. I mean, we have really good equipment. We're expected to take care of that equipment, and we're also expected to do a first-class job with that equipment.
Right.
And those are benchmarks that are non-negotiable, and we do a great job at our department. Last year, we were able to purchase a Bearcat, which is a lot of departments have MRAPs, which is a military version, and we have one of those as well, but it's more of the military. So the Bearcat is a civilianized model. It's much smaller, but it actually has the same purpose.
Right. Armored vehicle. Since you touched on that, supporting law enforcement, how is the Nampa, specifically Nampa, but also the Boise area in general, like, how's that relationship with law enforcement? Is the community super supportive, or is there, because I know a lot of places where people are considering moving from, there's some animosity.
Are you talking between department to department, or are you talking just citizens and
citizens versus officers?
Oh, you know what? I can speak for, I'm going to speak for the whole valley, and I say that they're very supportive of law enforcement here. Nampa community, for instance, we couldn't do our job if we didn't have community support, and that's from the mayor's office all the way down to just anybody that you see day in and day out. And that's what I appreciate about Nampa is people still want law and order here. They understand that if the police department makes a mistake, they have to be transparent about it. And that's where you get in trouble if you try to cover something up. And as long as you are transparent about it, you let them know that, hey, we made a mistake, or we could do better on this the next time. They support us, and that's really what makes my job easy. But it's not easy to keep that support either. We do a lot on social media. We do a lot on like these community talks you were talking about. We try to get out in the community because most people see police officers, it's a bad day for them, right? I'm either writing you a ticket, I'm out at your house because you were a victim of a burglary or something. Very rarely do people call police because they just want to say hi. And so we want to turn that interaction into a positive interaction, and also to let them see us at times that it's good times for them too.
Right. What kind of community outreach stuff do you guys do, like events?
Oh, wow. So we excel in that area, actually. We have a community engagement coordinator. I think you met her, Carmen, that night at that event. So her job is to do the social media, and it's also to line up the talks. It's to line up stuff with, whether it be Special Olympics, whether it be Shop with a Cop, Tip a Cop, any of those things that are out in the community. But one thing that we've really found with her position, we created that position about 3 years ago. And it was actually, if you were to call and say you were part of a civic group and you just wanted to talk about maybe auto burglaries in your neighborhood, I'm not the guy probably that should be out there. So Carmen will take it upon herself, and she will say, well, this is more of a property crimes detective, and here's the person that specializes in it. So you're really going to get that person that is their expertise to come out and talk to you, or, whatever the circumstances may be.
One thing that I really like, and I always mention this whenever I'm talking to people, I follow you guys on Facebook, and there was one like a month and a half ago, maybe 2 months ago, somebody lifted a wallet at the getaway. And so you pulled like a security clip of the person, put it on your Facebook.
Sure.
And within like a couple hours, and this happens multiple times, you're like, yeah, we got the guy, because the community is like,
sure,
just giving you insight on where to look.
Again, that's, there's 115,000 sets of eyes out there. Somebody knows that person. If we don't have it, we're going to put it out in our community, because the vast majority of this community, they don't want those people out there either, right? They want them held accountable for their crimes. And so that's just a smarter way to police. You put it out there, you let the community get involved in it, and then you have to let them know, yes, we found this person, this is who they are, or just identified or captured or whatever she's putting across that. But again, that keeps the community engaged with what we're doing too.
Right. Speaking in terms of when we talk about crime in Nampa, growing up here, I'm fourth generation in Nampa. It seems like when something happens, it kind of tends to get blown out of proportion because just nothing really goes on here. For instance, there was a post on social media that I saw, and it might have been Boise Police Department that posted this. Somebody stole a flower pot off somebody's front porch.
Okay.
And they actually, like, you know, within a few hours, they posted the Ring camera on the picture on their Facebook page, and then within a few hours, they were able to find that flower pot. Where I'm going at with this, when we talk about crime in Nampa, what is really going on with that? Is it like the big city crime, like gangs and shootings and all that stuff? What's the biggest makeup of that?
So it ebbs and flows, right? Right now, so you're probably talking, 25 to 30 years ago, Nampa had a horrible reputation for being a violent, rough city with gang shootings, and we did. That being said, we addressed it head on. Do we still have gangs? And yeah, we have gangs here, but I'll tell you what, we actually have specific people that is their full-time job to basically keep that lid on those gangs and stuff, and make sure that they're not, acting out or doing anything like that. We do have violent crime in this city, but it's a very safe city too. Right. I mean, when you put 100,000+ people in any city, you're gonna have a certain percent of the population. There's crimes of opportunity, and then there's career criminals. The career criminals, those are the people that we want to focus on. Those people that just don't get it, that are going to jail, 3 or 4 or 5 times a month even. Those are the people that are a nuisance to us. Now, there's crimes of opportunity, or some kid out doing something stupid and it's a one-time deal. Sometimes we're going to catch them, sometimes we're not. But our crime has consistently went down since we've been really tracking it heavily under the CompStat model of policing since 2018. Even though we're getting between 3,000 and 5,000 new residents in, our crime is consistently going down. Our population's going up, but our crime is still going down. So that tells me, number one, either we're doing a great job and we're having good people move into this, this city, but you're always going to have a certain percentage out of there. But those are the people we work with our prosecutors' offices on, and we have the specialized units, because patrol is kind of the catch-all. Everybody sees the patrol officers. We have a gang team, we have narcotics teams, we have computer forensic teams, we have property crimes detectives, we have persons crimes detectives, we have victim witness people. I mean, these are all folks that are behind the scene that are invaluable to keep the patrol officers, what the community sees, out there functioning.
With all the growth that we've been seeing and is projected to come to the Nampa area, has that changed how you guys are kind of policing, or is there anything new that you're?
I think I'm going to go back over the 30-some years that I've been doing it. I think we police a lot smarter today than, and I wouldn't say it's so much the population, it's just the involvement of law enforcement. It used to be you would jump in, like my very first assignment basically is from this station, was out Caldwell Boulevard and a mile each direction. That was my patrol area.
Right.
Yeah, I knew my patrol area really well, but if nothing was going on that night or that day, and this over by this side of town was getting killed, I had to stay in my area. Now we're out there, and our guys actually, and I just kind of, I don't want to say drove around aimlessly, but I just drove around and was waiting for calls to come in.
Gotcha.
Now we're very proactive. We're very mission driven. We're going out actually with a purpose. Okay, this is the bad guy that we're looking for tonight. And if we find out that guy is maybe not in town, or he's over at Canyon County Jail, then what else am I going to do to fill my time? Whether that's, walking through some stores for some good old community policing, or whether that's out helping my buddy out trying to do, whatever to take the problem out of his area of town. So it's not so much, used to be very funneled, and now it's more of a broad approach.
Right. So with all the growth that we're seeing in Nampa, a lot of it's going North Nampa and then West Nampa. How is that? Are you guys having to maybe redistribute, or?
So I wouldn't say we're redistributing, but I would say we're very cautious. We pay attention to where the growth is coming. I don't know if you've ever been to a planning and zoning meeting, but as a new subdivision or new development is coming in, now there'll be a letter from the police department saying, if you're going to approve these, 50 houses, it's going to take, 1.5 officers to police that once it's fully built out. And our goal is to get ahead of that. So as you're building your new house, we already have police in the area, because it takes a long time to train a police officer up. So, as you're building your house, somebody's not taking the copper wire out, or vandalizing your house, or stealing your wood, or whatever it might be. We want to be again proactive and be in front of that. That being said, now there is growing pains, because we are growing, I wouldn't say faster than we can keep up, but and we're certainly not to the numbers that I want to get to. We're at about 1.2 officers per 1,000 residents, which is in line with the national average. but you have to look at each area. So if you were to look at Meridian, for example, even though we're only 6 or 7 miles apart, their crime is different than our crime. That's more of a bedroom community where people, go to bed at night, and then they work. A lot of them work out in Nampa or Boise or whatever, and they commute. Where our crimes over here, it's more people seem to come over here. I don't know what our numbers are during the day as people come in.
Right.
A good example would be like Garden City, fairly small town, but by the day it's 6-7 times the population that it is at night.
Right.
So, but no, I think we do a good job in it, really forecasting and working with the city leadership especially as Highway 16 is getting ready to come out, on the east or the northeast side of town.
Yeah.
That's going to be a hot spot for growth, both industrial and residential. And so we need to be planning for that before it gets there, because it's coming.
Do you collaborate with like the Highway 16 area, for instance, like since it's like smack dab in the middle of Nampa's right here, Meridian's right here, Highway 16's in the middle. Are you like working with Meridian Police Department in projecting what's going to happen there?
I wouldn't say it wouldn't be police department to police department so much, but I mean, we do have constant communication with the Meridian Police Department, but it would be more city leadership to leadership and more planning and zoning, just kind of defining the boundary areas because we both know that we're going to be butting up to each other, here very soon. I can tell you though, that's probably the other thing that makes this state so special is how police departments work together. There's none of these little silos. And if there are, we break them down, right? I mean, I could pick up the phone right now and talk to the Boise police chief, the Meridian chief, the Canyon County sheriff, and we just have that type of a relationship where I'm like, hey, I need 5 of your people tonight. I have such and such going on.
Gotcha.
No problem. We'll get them over there to help you out. And so we really, really help each other a lot. And that is through the whole state of Idaho, quite frankly, but we're very lucky here with the resources. If I'm missing some resources in Nampa, maybe Boise has them.
Right.
And I guarantee you, if I call over there and say, could I have these resources, they're going to do that as we would to them.
Right. As far as like bringing on new officers on the force and growing the department, why should maybe potential officers want to work with Nampa PD instead of maybe one of the other police departments around here?
Well, the easy answer is we're the best. Now, I think what's nice about the city of Nampa is we're a growing city. There's a lot of opportunity here. Again, we spoke, the community supports us, the city council and the mayor supports us. Right. And right now it would just be opportunities. We're not the highest paid, but we're also not the lowest paid. So you make a comfortable living doing this job. There's clearly job security with always keeping crime down and stuff. But I think what we have here is we're still allowed to be the police in Idaho, and a lot of we'll go to different conferences and stuff and talk to other officers.
Right.
That was lost 20 years ago. The criminals have more rights than the police, and luckily our folks here in Idaho, no, they don't want those bad people in this state.
Right. As far as, because it seems like every time I turn on the news, which I don't do that often, there's always people complaining that officers needed more training in a certain situation or whatnot. Is there any, maybe, I don't know, de-escalation training or whatnot?
Sure.
that's new with the department?
Well, everything is always evolving, right? I mean, we don't sit still. As far as training, I can tell you, we're probably one of the highest trained departments in the state. So the way our schedule works is every Wednesday, there's some sort of training going on here, and it's for the full day and into the evenings, because clearly we're a 24-hour day operation. Right. But so let's say, maybe it's this week, it's these 4 patrol teams are all training, and day shift might not see the late swing shift very often, but they're going to train together. So we're all doing it the same way. The next Wednesday, they'll be out on patrol, and it'll be the other half of the team, or the specialty trainings and stuff. So that's one thing. A good example would be our police academy. We do a joint academy with the city of Meridian.
Okay.
And if you went to the state academy over there in Meridian, you might get, and I'm just throwing the number out, let's say 500 rounds you might get to shoot at the range, but you also might only get to shoot 3 or 4 times during the day.
Okay.
Or at our academy, that's a high liability thing. You might shoot 5,000 rounds, and you're going to be out there just constantly. The driving, the hand-to-hand combat or the defensive tactics, the de-escalation, everything that's going to get you sued. That's what we well exceed the state standards in that. And just because you're done with the academy doesn't mean you're done training. 32 years later, and I'm still having to, go through training, but it's so much different than what is 30 years ago versus,
Yeah.
what it is today. And I think that's the other thing too. We have relationships with hospitals for like mental holds, right? You're not just going to pull up and drop this person off. We actually do care. We're going to follow this person through and make sure that they're getting the help that they're needing. Otherwise, I'm going to be dealing with them in 72 hours after their mental hold is up because they're just caught in that vicious cycle. That's one position that we're looking at bringing on this year, probably in the next 2 months, is a person that all they deal with is the mental subjects that are in Nampa or people that are in crisis, and it's not because we have so many of them, it's because it'll stop the repetitive cycle. That's our goal,
Right.
is to find out if I'm dealing with you all the time, or let's say on day shift I'm dealing with you, and then you get out and night shift has to start over, finding out who your insurance is, where's your family, what medicines are you supposed to be taking, who is your health worker, all that type of stuff, where now this one person will have all that in a database, or they'll have it in their files to say, oh no, I've dealt with Isaac before, this is what he needs, and this is how we can keep him calm and get him help, so we don't keep dealing with you.
One thing, I talked with some people who and one of the things that came up was about they were concerned about the makeup of the police department, diversity in the police department, not necessarily matching up the diversity makeup of the Nampa area.
Sure.
Is that something that you guys are working on?
So yeah, we're working on that. So we're at about a 27 to 28% Hispanic population in Nampa, and we're not near those numbers, in our police department. That being said, we have people that speak, Spanish. We have language lines that we can depend on and stuff like that. And I don't know why, because everybody's welcome to test. It just isn't right now. We're just not as high in those numbers as we want. I don't have I'm going to say and this is just a rough guess, I'm going to say we're 10 to maybe 15%, to meet
Yeah.
the Hispanic population needs.
Well, that's one of the, there was somebody who we don't see eye to eye politically, and that was one of their large concerns. So I wasn't sure, I can see that being a fact, but I wasn't sure whether or not that would actually have any real life like carryover and whatnot.
I think it is important to represent the community that you police, but again, I don't know if that's more of a political thing or what, because I don't think we've ever been to the numbers that we need to be in that specific area, and we function just fine. Again, it's not the color of the skin or the language that they speak, it's the values that the person brings to us, and I can assure you we hold ourselves to really, really high values here. I think we've done a good job. Could we do better in that area? Absolutely.
Right.
As any of your viewers that are interested in testing, we check our website out.
Come on out.
We're definitely wanting to hire folks.
Awesome. All right, let's see. We kind of jumped all over the place.
I should have read your questions before.
No, well, it was, it's carrying great conversation. One thing leads to the next, and leads to the next. So it's a lot of people from like Boise and Eagle, when they hear about Nampa or Caldwell, one of the first things is like, that's not safe. There's gangs there.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was talking with the chief of police in Caldwell, he was saying more along, it's gangs in Nampa and Caldwell aren't like gangs that maybe in Southern California or issues. They're more of kind of misguided youth.
I'm going to disagree with that a little bit. Now, we actually do have gangs. Are they to the scale in like Southern California? No, they're not. But that's because, again, we don't tolerate that here. I'm just looking out as we're sitting here talking. You don't see graffiti here,
right? Because
it's the community police. And it's not that we don't have graffiti, but it's the broken windows theory. If there's graffiti, you need to report it. We'll get it covered. Usually within 24 hours, it's covered up. They spend all that time doing all their nice little artwork, and we come over and paint it white and get it covered up. And also because that's a priority. We don't want gangs to be running this city. And so that's a very focused effort. Like I say, right now, gang crime is on a downward trend. I want to make sure that it stays on that way. And if they start to, raise their level again, we're going to put all our resources on them and make sure that we're running this city and we're having a safe city. We're not going to let them control it. And I think that's the big difference between, California and Idaho. The U.S. kind of has an issue with drugs right now, like fentanyl, for instance.
how it would be irresponsible to say that it's not impacting Idaho.
Oh, absolutely.
How much of an effect is that having in the Nampa?
Fentanyl specifically, or
Just sure.
so yeah, fentanyl is that's the one right now that you can kind of watch stuff on the East Coast as it bleeds across the United States. So fentanyl right now is what we're having a big problem with. It's killing a lot of people. I can tell you that what we do as our narcotics unit, so we have federal, state, and local narcotics units that work in this city. We have a lot of narcotics that actually travel through Idaho, and not so much just Nampa, but through Idaho, because of it's going up to Spokane, it's going down to it's going to Portland, it's going to Salt Lake City, just because of the interstate system through here. That being said, 2 years ago we worked with our state legislatures because we really didn't have a good fentanyl bill on the books. And it took a little while, but now we've got a really strong fentanyl laws. Heroin is a good example. I was just talking to somebody this morning. You can barely buy heroin in the state of Idaho because our laws are so strict on it. We had a narcotics officer testifying to the legislature, and he'd brought over some phone calls that were recorded, and it was actually a drug dealer that refused to sell heroin in the state of Idaho because he knew the mandatory minimums were so high. So he's like, you got to meet me over here in Oregon if you want to buy this stuff. That's what we want. We want it to be strict enough. There's no good use for any of those drugs, because with the drug use brings the thefts and the unwanted behavior. So do we have drugs in this city? Absolutely. Are we well aware of it, and do we stay on top of it? Absolutely. And are those guys busy, those narcotics officers? Yes, they are.
You mentioned Oregon. Is there any challenges that you guys have seen or changes with, or maybe being next to states that don't have as strong laws in regards to that?
Most of them don't even have laws really dealing with any type of drug, really. So yeah, I mean, that's, well, let's go back to the hiring thing. So that's an issue for me to hire somebody, right? In Idaho, we're very strict on if you want to be a police officer, you probably shouldn't be out smoking marijuana or doing meth, because you're not going to get hired in the state of Idaho. Every state that surrounds Idaho, a lot of those drugs are illegal or, personal amounts. And so they're saying, well, what I did in this state of Oregon was legal. But again, that's not the value of the person I want here. I mean, you could also say you could go down to Las Vegas and buy a prostitute, and it's legal down there. That doesn't mean it's right. And so that would be the biggest thing that we're seeing here. And of course, you can go over to Oregon and, you buy your marijuana and people bring it back. So I haven't seen so much of a rise on that, but I bet if you talk to the Idaho State Police who police the road, between Ontario and here, I bet you they've seen an increase.
Yeah. Absolutely. Switching over, as far as like families who are looking at living in Idaho, one of the first questions that comes into mind, is this a safe place that I can raise my kids in the community? Nampa specifically.
Sure.
What's your take on that? Is Nampa a good place to raise your family? Is it safe?
So our numbers, so we're down about 38% right now in violent crimes. Not, like I said, not to say we don't have them here, but it's very safe. And if you look at the national average, we're right in line, and actually under in a lot of those categories. Is Nampa a community that you could let your kid ride his bike in the downtown area or play out in the front yard? Absolutely. Nothing, things don't happen like they do in the bigger cities here. We're a big city with that small town feel, and I think that's what makes this still special. Even though, this valley is, probably got close to 1 million people in it.
Yeah.
You just don't see those type of crimes like you would see in those other, rarely will you see, a homicide or an officer involved shooting or something like that. They do happen, but not to the frequency where it's just an everyday occurrence here. And I guess that would be the thing. I would encourage your viewers to actually get on the Idaho State Police website and look what the crime index is for the Treasure Valley area, and specifically Nampa. And I think if they compared that to wherever they're coming from, no matter what state it is in the union, they're going to be like, that's a city I want to live in.
Awesome. This is an interesting one. So I gathered comments from the internet about Nampa. I'm just going to read them to you and then get your response on this. First one, don't hang around 4th and North Side, 2nd and 4th, 8th and 7th, or in apartment complexes on South Side unless you want trouble or absolutely have to.
I would need more context on that one because, again, I think a lot of that on that north side stuff is the stigma from 25 or 30 years ago. I would have no problem being over there or bringing my family over to those areas. And I don't know the apartment complex they're talking about, but I can tell you this, if we were having a lot of calls for service there and it really was as bad as this person says it is, it's definitely on one of our missions under our ComStat to make sure that it's not a problem.
Awesome. Don't go to the Fast Mart off of 6th over by the car dealership. That's the Hood store. And do not wear 49ers, Raiders, or Dallas Cowboys merch unless you look like somebody who won't fight or if you're really down with the gang. I guess they're talking about gangs.
Yeah, well, you're in Seattle Seahawks territory, so why would you wear any of that stuff? Yeah, again, that's not an area that, you know, the gangs, I've never heard any of that with those, you know, the Raiders gear, of course, has that stigma too. But again, that's not colors that they're wearing around here. As far as this Fast Mart, no, it doesn't stand out to me that it's a problem.
Also, I would reckon there's a police shortage too, since you hardly see any cops and people blow through red lights like it's nothing at all over.
Now that one I have heard quite a bit about, the red light tickets. What I can tell you is we do a lot of traffic stops in Nampa, but we don't write a lot of tickets. And I'll explain why we don't. So I have 7 officers that are assigned to the motor cops, the motor officers. Yeah, you're going to get a ticket more than likely if you get pulled up for them because their sole job is to be out working these hot areas. Granted, 7 officers, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, that doesn't leave a lot of coverage. One of the reasons we don't want our patrol officers to be writing a lot of tickets is because I want them to stop. With the technology, as soon as I pull you over, I know the last time you were stopped, I know if you've got a warning, I know how many times you've been stopped. Let's say I stop you on Calder Boulevard, one of our main arteries coming through here. I want to have that personal interaction with you because now I'm learning who you are, what you're doing. I've got my lights on in my car. What do you say? In 10 minutes, 300 cars drive by you at least out on the boulevard. And what I can tell you, you know, on that is it's visual deterrence. And now that being said, if you've been stopped 3 times and you've got 3 warnings and you're clearly not learning your lesson, well, then we have the discretion to write the ticket. Also, when I write you that ticket, you know, it's roughly going to cost, let's say $100 to go to traffic court. What's going to cost the taxpayers around $250 to $280 to send that police officer to court. So who's really winning here on the big scheme of things? Now that being said, we do write tickets, but it's probably a 4-to-1 that we don't write tickets.
How I guess I know some people who tend to get pulled over quite often, and their thing is like, well, the cops are just nitpicking me, you know. Are you guys going to pull over somebody because of something seemingly small like window tint is too dark? Or
I mean, they can. I mean, there's laws out there that, you know, some laws that I've never stopped anybody for. You know, a big one going through the legislature this year was no front license plates, right? I'm not going to stop a Corvette that's driving, or a classic pickup that doesn't have a front license plate. Now, if it's, you know, some car prowling a neighborhood at night and I'm thinking this guy doesn't belong here and he doesn't have a front plate, yeah, I can use that as probable cause. Now that doesn't say I'm going to write the ticket for it, but it's a reason to stop them, find out who they are. Sounds to me if your friends are getting stopped numerous times, then it's probably more than a window tint. It's probably they're probably asking to be pulled over for something.
My opinion on them and theirs doesn't match up. But here's one. I do landscaping in the Treasure Valley with an open trailer, and Nampa is the only place I've ever had someone steal things off my trailer. Never in a million years would I live in Nampa.
Well, again, hopefully they filed a report and hopefully we found their stuff back, you know, got it back to them. Again, you know, there's crimes of opportunities and career criminals. We do the best job we can to try to, you know, come across people that are doing that type of stuff, hence driving through neighborhoods at night with blacked out, you know, bicycle patrols and all that type of stuff. But those are hard to catch, right? Criminals aren't smart people. They just aren't. And so they find what they're good at, or they think they're good at, and they keep doing it over and over and over. And those are the people that are they're a thorn in our society, quite frankly. And so we want to remove that thorn and put them either over in jail or at prison and get them out of here. Every once in a while, yeah, you're going to get lucky and you're going to, you know, find somebody doing a burglary or, you know, stealing something off somebody's trailer. But that's, you know, that's where you depend on the community to be out there and saying, hey, there's somebody suspicious out here. They don't look like they work for this person and they're rifling through the trailer. Then we'll send police out there and find out what's going on.
When I saw that one, thought that was kind of interesting because growing up here in Nampa, you know, we would ride our bicycles around the neighborhood all the time.
Sure.
You know, before cell phones, the street light comes on, you have to be home.
Sure.
We'd leave our bicycles in the front yard, scooters. We'd forget the garage door open all night.
Yeah.
Or we go to the store and forget the garage door open.
Yeah.
Nothing ever disappeared or
Yeah.
was out of place or untouched. So that just seemed like an odd thing.
Yeah, but I think back then, you know, it's a different, I mean, it's still got that farming community vibe to it, and there's still good people here, but again, now it's just being a little smarter, right? Maybe we weren't the
Right.
smartest when we were leaving our bike out in our front yard and stuff. So now don't make yourself a victim, right? I mean, I'm not saying you have to do it, but it certainly makes more sense that it's like, you know, wheel your bike into your garage and
Right.
close your garage door for the night.
Yeah.
It's probably going to save us coming out there tomorrow to take our report.
Again, same thing. There are a ton of gangs in Nampa spraying all the fences in southern Nampa. There are many spots sprayed near the Karcher Mall. Just general comment about the gangs again.
Again, I'm going to fall back on that. I'm going to tell you, we do have gangs here, but I'm going to tell you that that's probably the perception from 25 to 30 years ago when it really was out of control. It's not out of control here. I'd be very surprised if when you leave here, if you drive out by Karcher Mall and you see a bunch of graffiti, we have a graffiti number that you can call. Anybody can call and report it. And like I said, we try to cover within 24 hours. I can't imagine that there's any just hanging out there on the boulevard.
This is an interesting one. Save the best for last. No, corrupt police state. Bankrupt, filthy, and trash everywhere.
So what's the question?
I don't know. That was their state. I guess if they would move to Nampa, but they would said no because you guys are corrupt. The police department's corrupt. But
well, again, we're going to agree to disagree on that one because I would put our people against anybody, you know, in the state or quite frankly the nation.
Right.
We hold our standards very high here at our department. As you see, you know, the teamwork, integrity, and excellence is written all over this building, and those aren't just core values that are just words. I mean, we actually live by those core values. You know, if you don't have teamwork, then you're probably not a good fit for us. If you don't have integrity, you're certainly not going to work in law enforcement. And if you don't produce excellent work, and that's excellent contacts, that's, you know, all the way through, you're representing, you know, the Nampa Police Department. Again, that we have to keep you on that. And the city's core values, they add stewardship to that. So, I mean, we're all speaking the same language here at the city of Nampa. I mean, there's been opportunities to go other places, and quite frankly, I could have retired and been done by now, but I love the city. I love what we stand for. I love this police department. And that's one reason I think as you walk around this building, you'll see it's just a different vibe here because it's not just our police department, it's a community police department. I don't know if you walked in and saw the banner when you came in, right above it said, "Welcome to your Nampa Police Department." Again, we want the doors to be open. We want people to see what we're all about because we can't do this job alone. It takes the community backing us, and we have it.
Awesome. Last question. Do you have any advice for somebody who's thinking about living in Nampa or moving to Nampa?
Any advice? That's an open-ended question. You know, I would just tell them to definitely look around. If they wanted to move to Idaho or the Treasure Valley area, I think it would be no different than we tell our police officers that are wanting to work, you know, for our city. It's like, we'll go out and look at the other cities that are around us and make sure that it's a good fit. Not only does us or the city need to be a good fit for you and your family, but you need to be a good fit. You know, you need to keep the values and everything that we have here because you're not going to change who we are. So you need to make sure you're going to fit good with where you're going to be residing. And if people that are interested in moving here, have them come down here. If they have questions or concerns about the police department, have them come down. Have them look at the Real-Time Crime Center. Have them sit and meet with me or somebody else that can answer their questions. If they have questions about statistics compared to where they're at, I mean, that's what we're here for. We want to educate them. We want them to understand. We want to hear their point of view. So, you know, and talk to people that live in the community. I think as people come here, they'll realize, wow, this is really what it's like, where people open doors for people, you know, say hi to each other on the sidewalk. And a lot of these people that we hire from other states that are working for our department, they're like, I've never had that. I've never had somebody open a door for me or, you know, tell me good morning as I'm walking on the sidewalk. And for you and I, it's like, that's how we know.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty special place.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Thanks for taking time to sit down.
Absolutely.